I have to apologize. I've been sick the last couple of days, so you're going to have to bear with my voice. Number two, the experts are done. I'm not the expert anymore. I'm a wastewater guy talking about poplar trees. So I'm the one that tries to treat the water the best I can before I put it on the trees. So in Woodburn, like you said, I've been there for 25 years. I was there when Mark Madison, Lewis Lick, and Jason all came out and were trying to push the issue of us having poplar trees. We decided that we needed to do poplar trees, like Jason said, because we had a TMDL on the Pudding River. We had some stringent limits, some of the most stringent in the state at the time for ammonia limits, and therefore we needed to find a robust way of taking care of that was cost effective. And at the time, we had a pretty aggressive group of people in town that wanted to do something natural. We didn't want to put concrete in the ground. We wanted to find something that could do the ammonia removal and reduce the waste load that was going into the Pudding River. And for us, that ended up being the poplar trees. We wanted to find a way that we could reduce the amount of flow going into the receiving stream, take care of the ammonia limits, and then also have something that was an agricultural benefit. One of the main talking points that we had was that we were hoping that we could find a way that the poplar trees could be a revenue source for the city of Woodburn. There were two arms of that. There was the arm that was saying, yes, someday it will be, and there was the arm that was saying, well, let's just worry about treating it for wastewater for right now. We're still in the let's just treat it for wastewater side, so we'll see how that goes. Again, our main time for irrigation is July and August, and we do utilize it for the biosolids, so it was a dual-use system. We do have, on the wastewater side, it's mainly about volume for the effluent. We can treat it down to a very low level so that our ammonia limits are very low going out onto the poplar trees. Therefore, we can make it up by the amount of biosolids that we actually land apply. So for every ton that we can land apply on site, it's 1 ton that we don't have to haul off site. So we've been very lucky in having a robust treatment system that allows us to do that. When we put the system in '99, we ended up planting it over parts of the area that had an established grass seed crop on it. We sprayed out the grass rows, put in the irrigation system, and if I can get the thing to work, we put in the cuttings. I can't even see it now, where it's even at. Anyway, pretty close to right in here. It's one bud sticking out of the ground. So those trees grew up to 8 feet tall in that first growing season. Like we had said, we're putting on roughly 900,000 gallons a day on the poplar plantation, which is 84 acres, equals about 41,000 trees. We use microspray irrigation, which equals out to about 1/10 of an inch an hour. Like Jason said, to have a robust system that allows people that are wastewater guys to run a poplar plantation makes it kind of nice. So we have an integrated SCADA system that allows us to monitor the amount of flow that goes out to our trees and then calculates the amount of loading rates that are needed. We can also run it 24 hours a day. That way we can kind of equalize out the amount of flow. We have a storage basin that allows us to hold the excess water so that at nighttime, of course, the diurnal flows of a treatment plant are less at night. Therefore, we can store some of our water at night and then irrigate that as well. 240 pounds an acre is what our pan limit is on our poplar plantation. Again, the question earlier was, being able to apply more. If it's not a dual system, then you can apply a lot more higher concentrated ammonia to that in your wastewater stream. Because we use it for biosolids, we're trying to also keep that limit as low as possible going in the effluent going to our trees so that we can jack up the amount of biosolids that we add to it. One of the problems that we had prior to this was that we had a 14-acre lagoon that was used for effluent storage because we were having to store water as much as we could during the peak summer. The problem was when that storage pond, we put effluent into it, we also ended up putting in some of the biosolids from our secondary process. So we put in facultative storage lagoons, which allowed us to store our biosolids on site liquid, and therefore that allowed us to land apply our biosolids in a liquid form on the poplar trees. One of the nice things about putting on the liquid on the biosolids is that we don't have to process it. We're pumping it directly out of our ponds through a hose reel right onto the poplar trees. Within the first 2 or 3 days, it's completely dry. The soil just soaks up all of the moisture, and we've got a very good product. So it works out well for us. Here's our site back in 2005 on the top, overview, 2015 on the bottom. On the bottom one, you can see that we've done some harvesting here in these units here. We've got 4 units that were actually harvested. You can see this looks a little sketchy right in here, like it's thinning hair. That's due to the fact that we had some wind damage. So one of the nice things about poplar trees is they grow nice and tall and nice and straight. And if you put them in enough of an area to where the clones aren't quite right and they're spaced to where they grow tall, you can have some wind throw issues. And in 95, we had some wind throw, or these were planted in 95, and in 2006, we had some wind throw issues. So we ended up going into our process and going in and harvesting this area actually a little bit earlier than what we had expected. One of the problems that you'll find is that when you want to kind of have somebody come in and harvest on a poplar plantation is they're looking at harvesting production-wise. They want to get in and get out as fast as they can. Nobody wants to harvest this. This is a joke for them. This is time-consuming and costly. Therefore, it was time-consuming and costly for us. So we had a couple of other units that we wanted to harvest at the same time, 24 acres. We ended up having a local gentleman come in and hand fell all of the trees, bunched them up with an accumulator, skid pulled them out on the roads, log decked them, and then they were chipped and hauled off site to Toledo, Oregon, and they were used for the corrugation in cardboard boxes. First harvest for us, yeah, we're wastewater guys, a little costly. Found it was ended up being around $52,000 cost for us, about $20,000 for the road damages that we had out in the poplar plantation. But the point is that we were looking at using wastewater on trees to get rid of the wastewater and to use up that ammonia component. So we knew, some of us knew, that it was going to be a cost involved, and it was just the way it was going to be. When we took this to council and said that we've got a contract, this is what it's going to cost, there were still a few people in the room that said, hey, didn't we talk about this back in 95 that we were going to make money on this project? So we had to re-explain that how things were actually working. So subsequently, we are now in the good times. We thought everything was going to be good and way to go. And then in 2009, we had some more blowdown, which was a little bit more extensive. Apparently, we must have had a microburst. You can see that we had the trees actually sheared off. And a lot of these trees, the fibers are so weak that they're just completely bent over. So what we found out in talking to Jason and others is the fact that, when you plant them as closely as we did, and we were planting them at 6.5 by 13 foot spacings, is that when those outside trees are the buffer, and those outside trees get weak and something happens, it just turns into like a domino effect on the inside because they just don't have as much of that strength from all the wind and what have you. So we ended up with a little bit of an issue. Here's my boss standing here trying to figure out what the hell he's going to do. And this site sat like this pretty much out of production. We ended up capping off some of the irrigation in the areas. We went in and tried to clean up a little bit ourselves and ended up irrigating about half of the unit to not have to deal with this issue. So we finally came through and ended up taking and harvesting those units that were bad, a couple of additional units this last fall. So we've kind of stretched this out over time. We've had some problems with some of the financial part of it as far as coming up with some revenues for it. But we ended up harvesting it. We ended up using Greenwood Resources for the harvest, which was very cost-effective for us and him as well. We also replanted the 16 acres that we originally harvested this last year that you'll see if you come on the tour. And then we're also replanting here, hopefully in May, the 27 acres that we just harvested. So one of the things that Jason had talked about is, having enough acreage that you can do your wastewater treatment and be able to do harvest. So you're going to have unforeseen things happen to you. You may end up having a rust issue where you can't irrigate as late in the season. You may have some damage from voles during your planting. You may have wind damage where you can't get in and actually spread your biosolids or even put on your wastewater. So for us, 80 acres was pretty optimal for it. To do it again, I would say probably 125 maybe or more. to make it safe. So you're not trying to figure out what happens when your process fails and you got no place to put your wastewater because your trees are harvesting or because, you know, it's a wet season. So those are the type of things that we kind of dealt with. I just wanted to kind of touch base on a little bit of that over the top. We'll talk more about it on the tour, but that's kind of an overview for us. So quick and easy.